What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Ready Steady Go Formula One podcast. I am your host, Joey. With me is Rob. I don't know if he's awake from Japan.
Nope, still snoozing. 100%
Um,
still sleeping.
Yeah, that wasn't a fun race, if I could be so bold.
Yeah, I think when free practice and qualifying are more exciting than the actual race, there's something wrong. And 4 fires is kind of comical.
Well, I think the problem is that it was just a super dry winter.
Yeah.
And, they might need to switch that race back to the summer months. I do like the fact that we don't have another race at midnight, 2 a.m. for the rest of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Singapore. Oh, no, it's a night race. Never mind.
That's at like 8 a.m., so I'm perfectly fine with that. But, you take the good with the bad. You're going to have fires, especially with as dry as that grass was. I don't know if they have rules against, like, wetting the grass like they do here, where they've got sprinkler systems all set up in the grass just to kind of get something to keep the ground wet enough to where it doesn't catch fire if you look at it funny.
Oh, you mean like if they kept it wet? That's tough to say.
Not so much kept it wet, but like got it to a point where it, like, if a spark from one of those titanium blocks jumped out, that it wouldn't catch fire.
Well, I mean, they did wet the grass after the couple.
They put
the grass
a
down.
flame retardant down on the grass, I think is what they said they did.
I thought they were wetting it on FP2.
They wet spots. I don't think they wet it like they should. Like, I mean, you could think of summers here when it's hot. You wet the grass, 10 minutes later, it's dry.
No, absolutely.
So, especially if you get the right kind of grass. It definitely reminded me of, I know you're not a NASCAR fan, so this won't ring a bell to you, but watching them race around Sonoma, if you see a typical race, the grass is all dead looking and brown. Mm-hmm. But then when you look at it, like, while no cars are on the track, you see, that bright green grass color that you're supposed to see.
Right.
That's what I the whole time I'm looking at FP1 and 2, I'm looking like, are they in California, like in the midst of summer? But it's going to make for a short discussion about the race itself. But honestly, there's so much to talk about right now. We've got, V10s are looking to make a comeback. I don't know if you heard that rumor.
It'll be interesting to see if that does happen. So, especially with the new fuel tanks.
And let me tell you, they have people have been posting like a restart from like the USGP in like 2003 of those V10s screaming around Indianapolis. And it's just like, oh my God, I want that back so bad. But we have that. We have many teams looking at Sergio Perez to make a comeback into the Formula One grid. And we don't have a deal to see Formula One in the U.S. for next year. What gives? But let's talk about the race first. Max Verstappen becoming the technical 4th different winner this season, taking the win away from Lando Norris. Honestly, this race was won on Saturday with qualifying.
100%.
The problem is, if you want to beat Verstappen, you have to do something different than Verstappen. And McLaren, for some reason, thought, let's do the same exact thing as Verstappen.
I mean, they did that with Norris. I mean, look at it. As soon as he pitted, Norris pit. So I know.
Well, Norris followed him.
Undercut.
That's the problem. Norris followed him, and the most exciting part of the race happened coming out of that pit stop. Red Bull, for some reason, Red Bull had a phenomenal stop.
Yeah.
No, Red Bull had a crappy stop. McLaren had a phenomenal stop. Got them out next to each other, and in all honesty, I think that, you heard Lando kind of saying like, he forced me off. You played chicken with Max Verstappen. You're not winning that. Like,
didn't
yes, he saw you.
He could have given him a little space, but he is in no needing to do that either. So Lando went for it, and he did his little wine fest to get the FIA's attention, and they're like, "No, bud, you went off on your own."
And I honestly think that I don't know if there's still communication not allowed between the race director and the teams, but if there is, I'm pretty sure that uh, there was a directive sent to McLaren that, okay, you could pursue this, but just know we've got you for turning off your pit limiter early. We've got you for unsafe release. Which one of those do you want to get penalized for? And they said, no, we're not going to pursue that anymore. Now, yes, Max Verstappen could have given him room. He had plenty of room to the white line, but that's not his prerogative. That's not his. He's not responsible for giving. Oh, you're there. Okay, I guess I'll give you room.
Yeah.
Because when you look at them leave the pit road, this is Lando. So you're not there to me. I don't care. I'm getting out the pits. I got to get out as fast as possible, and the fastest point is a straight line. If I do any kind of deviation, I could risk crossing that white line, or I risk giving you that inside line for turn one.
No, 100%. And there was like you said, there was no need for him. It's not going to be in his mindset to even give space because there is no rule that you have to give someone space in the pit lane or on the pit lane exit. So
Well, you're supposed to only be in that fast lane up against the wall. You're not supposed to where those sponsorship markings are. You're not supposed to be there. That's supposed to be just for you to merge over.
but
I
even
guess
still,
because
Lando would still be behind.
But I think because they were the first and second pit stalls, then it's more of an open game because you're not going to see Max Verstappen can't hold that line on that sponsorship because you got McLaren right there. If something happens, he hits a McLaren mechanic. You know, that's bad news for McLaren. So I think they just kind of let it go just because it's, it's a racing deal. They're starting to kind of let more of those things kind of go. Not get involved in the races as they've done in the past. So it'll be interesting to see if down the road when the pits are set up that way, are we going to have a repeat of Max and Lando coming out of the pits side by side again with whatever teams that may be?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see, but at the same time, I'm not worried about it. I don't think Lando's worried about it at this point either. He's probably like, he didn't have to give it to me. I just gonna chirp just to chirp.
I think Max said something about that was an expensive lawnmower that Lando was operating.
Oh yeah.
But back to McLaren. They, like I said, they lost that race on Saturday. The reason that passing was so hard is because you didn't have the tire fall off. That's what happens when Formula One and Pirelli bring the hardest 3 tire compounds of the range.
I still don't understand that. I thought it wasn't a good idea. I get, new surface, but it was only like a partial new surface, right?
It's a significant new surface from the last chicane all the way to turn 8 was repaved. And I'll be honest with the way that track was set up and the way that start out as a wet race with what has happened there in the past, my mind's on 11 years ago with Jules Bianchi.
Right.
I'm not putting these drivers in any more danger than they already are going to that track. I did kind of laugh at the puddle spot going into one at the beginning. Just kind of give yourself a quick, and I mean quick, cool spot on the tires to kind of help the longevity of those tires, get a little further in the race, and maybe that helped with them lasting as long as they did. But you got to have tire fall off. That's the biggest thing that causes people, if you're sitting there and you're going full speed, full tilt with no mistake in every corner and everyone's doing the same thing, you're not going to get much passing. There's not much difference between as much as it looks, there's not that much a difference between Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. There's not that much a difference between Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, talent-wise. Now, the results, the gap between the cars, that's on the cars.
Yeah.
But you need to have a difference of speed coming out of 130R. You have to have a difference of speed coming out of turn 2 to create those passing moments where, hey, I got out of this turn better than you did, so I've got a little more speed. I can make a run here. You didn't have that. Part of it possibly was because the whole day, it was just a gloomy, cloudy day. If the sun was out, maybe they're pushing the cars a little harder. It's overheating the tires. But because of the cloud cover, that kind of helps keep the tire temps down and creates a little more grip to allow the tires to last a little longer.
Yeah, because wasn't it only 58 degrees outside?
I don't have the weather for that race in front of me.
I think it was. That number's kind of sticking out to me. But also, like, driver-wise, Lando is historically bad about hitting the curves too hard. And I feel like that's partly why he couldn't have the pace. And that's why with 10 laps left, I feel like Piastri was like, okay, if this is Lando's pace, let me pass him up and have a shot. Because I definitely feel Piastri can take the corners a little bit better.
I think also McLaren doesn't rely on the, hey, go give it a shot. But if by this lap you haven't passed him, give the place back. I would have been totally okay with, okay, Oscar, go for it. If you can't pass Max, give him the spot back.
Right.
Just because at that point, McLaren decides who's getting what by whatever spot until they say, okay, go race. And at that point, it was Lando's race for McLaren. Mm-hmm. So if I'm Zach, if I'm Andrea, if I'm anybody that's in power at McLaren, I'm rethinking this papaya rules of, we're going to just give it to whoever at lap whatever, and they're going to stick with it, and it's going to be that way for the entirety of the race. If Oscar had a shot, I think he could have maybe made a pass on Max, at least probably put some pressure on him. But, this is where I look at Piastri and who his representative is in Mark Webber, that there's a clear sight of, all right, who's number one, who's number two. I know like hell that Oscar does not want to be a number two driver to anybody. And, you can sit there and say you have two number one drivers with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. But if you have two number ones, you don't have a number one driver.
Right.
So get that figured out and get it figured out fast, because you have until June before these flexi wings are going to be completely gone from the sport. I saw a video of looking at the rear wing of the Red Bull and then looking at the rear wing of the McLaren, and you could clearly see the McLaren flexing in the middle down to take away that drag from, the going into 130R, going down the main straight. If you have that wing ducking out of the air, that's one, you can have a higher wing for the higher speed corners. So you create more downforce. You could get through the turns a little bit faster. But then when you're going down the straightaway, if it's bending out of the air, you then basically get a lower wing in effect. And, people say, oh, they're cheating. Let me tell you something. In motorsports, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Right.
You have to find the gray area. You have to live in that gray area. Sometimes even kind of dip that toe into the black just to say, look, I'm trying. Because, you set a car up, you're setting a car up with like maybe 10 things that the FIA might miss, hoping they might hit 2 of them so that you got 3 that get by. Right. So I think the gap is closer now with after Japan, because one, McLaren's trying to figure out how are we going to survive without the flexi wing, the problem with the tires this weekend. Max is that good of a driver that he can basically take a shit car and bring it as high as he did.
Yeah.
So
he also had a different wing setup than Yuki too. He had that lower wing setup.
I think they did that because they wanted to see that Yuki was going to be comfortable. They wanted to be like, hey, we know how hard this second seat is. Let's make it comfortable for you, and then we'll push it based on what your feedback is.
Okay.
Whereas with Liam, it was just, okay, there's the car, go for it.
Right.
They didn't want to sit there and eat crow that, okay, the second seat is cursed or it is a struggle. Because
I mean, Yuki still struggled either way. I mean, he finished 12th, but where did he start? He started 15th. So quality wise, which was, going off of his strength, like you were saying, where let's make it comfortable for you. So now that Yuki's got a feel for the car, now they got to, get him used to, hey, we're going to have a more aggressive style for you, like Max's.
And it's, in all honesty, they need to just survive this year. Figure out what you're doing for 26 with those regulations, and then go from there. Right now, Honda's leaving next year. They're going to Ford powertrains that they are building, that they are designing. It's just with the partnership. Like right now, if you look at their team name, it says Red Bull Powertrain at the end, but it's through a partnership with Honda.
Right.
I thought Yuki was going to do a little better than he did. I think that Honda partnership is what's carrying him to this point. But what's going to happen the rest of the year? What's going to happen next year? That remains to be seen. I do know this. I don't know if you saw this, but the Red Bulls had their normal livery covered. It wasn't a new livery. It was covered with that white livery.
Oh, okay.
Because there's pictures out there of them peeling the livery away to get the cars ready for Bahrain this weekend.
I mean, that makes the most sense monetarily. It doesn't make sense to have a paint job done or a livery done for one race.
But they were carrying that extra weight of the graphics on the car.
Right.
So,
which is what, maybe 5 pounds?
It's heavier than you think.
Yeah.
It's not just the dead weight when it sits. It's the weight when it's being pushed down to the ground.
Right.
That's being added. I like the car. I thought the car looked great. I will say though that Max has won in both iterations of the Honda, call it Memorial livery, that they've had over the last 4 years, because he won in Turkey with the Japanese Honda layout, and then with this one this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it'll be interesting. The only other thing that I can think of that was anywhere close to kind of comical with the race was probably two things. Carlos won in FP1, forgetting where his pit stop was. And then the Toyota driver, the Japanese Toyota driver, Hirakawa, is that how you say his name?
Yes.
He outperformed Gasly in the Alpine, like Duhan's Alpine, which you would think they would want Duhan having more practice, but they pulled him instead of Gasly.
So what I do know is that I think both drivers are going to have to miss practice time at some point this season. I don't know if you heard.
Why make your rookie miss first? That doesn't make sense. He needs the most practice.
I don't know if you heard Jacques Villeneuve in the booth. He blatantly said that Flavio does not want Jack Doohan in the car.
How does he know that? Well, it's Flavio. Flavio's not going to hold that shit back.
And Villeneuve is going to, he's carte blanche. Here's everything that I have heard. He's not going to hold anything back. That is one reason why I like that he was in the booth this weekend. He gave some insight. He gave some, some information that you might not necessarily hear from a Karun, Martin Brundle, a Anthony Davidson, or anything like that.
Don't get me wrong. I appreciate the candidness of it, but I don't know. When I first heard him, I think I wasn't even paying attention. It was just like the pre-show,
Mm-hmm.
and like so many times he kept talking over people. And I'm just like, that's like all the broadcasters know. Like you let your person finish their thought. You don't really interrupt them. I know Danica Patrick kind of did that a couple of times when she first started, and they kind of nipped that in the butt pretty quickly. So I mean, if he's back, he's gonna have to do better. And I'm like, I also don't feel like he should have been in the booth with Crofty either. I feel like you could have had somebody better.
So Crofty is the Sky Sports guy. If you're watching ESPN, you're getting Sky Sports.
Yeah.
I think Crofty is one of the best in Formula One. So he's been doing this for, I want to say it's since 2009, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that's how long I've gone back. Like I've seen races for that far back, and it's his voice. The thing with Villeneuve is I think that was his first time in the booth.
It
So
shows.
he's gonna have the, it's gonna be the growing pains. The seed is there for him to do well. I've seen a lot of people say, "Don't bring him back. Don't bring him back." I think part of it is he is a but. He's not a and therefore.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he does, but this is why you should do this way. It's this happened, and then that happened, therefore this happened. Like, it takes time, and that's why they had Anthony Davidson in with them in the booth, just to kind of make up for what he lacked in TV. I will say, you brought up Danica Patrick. Next time you watch a Sky F1 feed, I want you to watch Danica and Jensen Button interact, because that could be a reality TV show in itself.
Yeah, it's kind of gold. I've seen it before. But no,
I don't
I'm not
understand.
saying he can't do better, but I will give you this, and you're gonna laugh because you know how I feel about Martin Brundle.
Yes.
Kind of missed him.
I told you. See, and here's the difference. So like
even the cringy pit walk, like
here's the difference. So you just what was the first year you fully paid attention to Formula One?
Fully paid attention. Oof. 18 or 19.
Okay. So you have only heard Crofty and you've only heard Martin Brundle.
Yeah.
I heard Bob Varsha, Steve Matchett, David Hobbs. The last two I just mentioned, and Lee Diffie. So I've heard a multitude, and then I've heard a couple others like here and there that would do one-offs. I have heard a multitude of different voices calling these races. Now, I will say, when it started going with Crofty was when that first race they did with Australia that year, it wasn't commercial free, and people lost their minds.
Mm-hmm.
The second race ESPN had from that point on, which I think the first year they had F1 was 18. From that point on, they've been commercial free races. Growing up for me, I watched it on Speed Channel, back when it was on Speed Vision in the late 2000 or late 90s, early 2000s, and then NBC when they had it from 20. I want to say it was 2013 until the 18 season. They had commercials, and they didn't have the picture-in-picture. And I know Speed Channel definitely didn't. NBC kind of picked it up, but you would have moments where it's a 50-lap race. You had 3 commercial breaks.
Sure.
So
that are 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
You got 6 minutes of race that you're completely missing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't go back and look and see if like they did it and then they recorded the race and then did it or whatever. But it was a different time then. This time now we're lucky to have Sky F1 broadcast these races. I don't know if any of these American broadcasters could do a commercial free race.
Netflix. No, I'm being completely sarcastic.
I'd rather not, because I'll be honest, I like having F1 TV, and if Netflix or Prime or Apple TV, which from what I've heard is going, like those are the three that have verbalized that they want the rights, we lose out on F1 TV. Like that's the entire catalog of races, I think, just poofs, gone.
Disappeared. Kind of like WWE Network.
Kind of, but I'm sure they'd have some kind of deal set up where it's like, look, if we do this, we just won't do live races. Which, if that's the case, so be it.
No, it's got to be live. There's too many people that are invested now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Drive to Survive definitely brought in more of the market, but at the same time, there were still always people watching or finding a way to watch. And it's just more people are talking about it publicly because it's on ESPN, where it's on, ESPNU or ESPN News. And you got two and Prime ESPN that are, showing everything on certain races when there's the ability.
So let's go into that. We have it on the show notes. Like, let's talk about the US rights. After this year, ESPN will no longer show Formula One. Their deal expires after the season, and Formula One has stated that they want double what ESPN paid. I'd have to look up to see what the US rights are.
I feel like they paid a shit ton. But also, ESPN hasn't really gotten much kickback from it either.
I'm trying to pull up the numbers.
Yeah.
Here we go. According to Puck News, don't know who this is. ESPN president Jimmy Pitaro has informed F1 that it won't renew its rights agreement that ends after the 25 season. ESPN has been paying approximately $90 million per season for F1 rights as a part of its current 3-year contract extension. ESPN pays to air Sky Sports' British coverage of F1 races, though it has sent ESPN employees to the US-based races, which they have. They've averaged 1.1 million viewers across the 3 networks that aired the Grand Prix races in 2024. The most watched race was the Miami Grand Prix. It had over 3.1 million. When ESPN first started broadcasting F1 races in 2018, it had an average of just over 500,000 viewers for the first season of races. Mm-hmm. That is according to Nick Bromberg of Yahoo Sports. I'll be honest. I think if, I accidented into finding out that ESPN had the rights when they got them. And
them getting the rights is part of the reason why I started watching.
Yeah, because before that, it was on NBC Sports, which it was NBC Sports Network carried all, if not, I think maybe 4 races were on big NBC. I think it was like Monaco, the USGP in Austin, Mexico, and maybe Brazil were on NBC. When Fox had the rights, they'd only have the USGP on NBC. I mean, on Big Fox. Other than that, it was on Speed Channel, which became FS1. So I don't know who I would want to get the rights. ESPN has done wonders for the sport in the United States. Granted, all they did was just say, "Hey, can we borrow your stream? Thank you." Plug.
Yeah. 30 seconds behind.
And then, like they said, they would bring them to the U.S. races, the talent from ESPN, which was basically Nicole Briscoe and maybe a Sports Center anchor, so that they could have Sports Center live from wherever the Grand Prix is. Mm-hmm. I'll be honestly, I look at motorsports coverage as a whole. I'm interested to see how NASCAR does it this year, because they have Fox until the weekend before Memorial Day. Then Amazon Prime takes over for 5 races. I think Turner takes over for the next 5, and then NBC closes out the year.
See, that's the problem. Too much jumping. You're going to lose people. You would lose me.
So the problem there is that you have Fox has picked up IndyCar for the entirety of the season, and every IndyCar race will be on Big Fox. Mm-hmm. I'd have to see when the IndyCar season ends, because they now have to compete with the NFL.
Right.
When they get to a certain point. The last race is actually August 31st is the final race of the IndyCar season. So they're not going to have to compete with the NFL. NASCAR goes until November. That means you're competing with the NFL. So you have to find a network that's willing to give you the TV time, especially these over-the-air digital networks like Fox, like CBS, like NBC, ABC, that's not going to have football to compete with it. NASCAR's Xfinity Series used to be Saturday on the like if it was on Fox, it was on FS1. If it was on NBC, it was on, I think it just became USA Network was carrying the races. But because NBC now has college football, they don't want to carry the Xfinity Series. So the CW has taken that over, and they have it for the whole year.
Interesting.
So it's you look at a weekend, because that's what racing is. It's a Friday practice if you have it, or it's the essentially double A series like NASCAR has the truck series. Then you have practice qualifying on Saturday, or you have the triple A, which is the Xfinity series in NASCAR, and then you have the big show on Sunday. So you have to make sure that your TV partners have those times open, that you can provide that service for the fan. In Formula One, ESPN makes it easy. Hey, we'll put you on ESPNU at this time. We'll put you on ESPN News. Somebody will find you there.
Right.
They have ESPN Plus. They could put you on that. But with these bigger networks that don't necessarily have the streaming service, like CBS has Paramount Plus. If you watch Champions League football, you pull it up on Paramount Plus, or you watch it on CBS Sports Network. They're not putting it on big CBS until the knockout rounds. I don't know that the next round of the Champions League is going to be on CBS. So it's finding the right partner, it's finding the right idea, and it's finding the right format. Because I could guarantee you, after ESPN's run, not one person in America is going to want commercials in the middle of their races.
No, absolutely not. And that's partly why I kind of half-heartedly said Netflix, because you already have Drive to Survive on there. It would make the most sense to keep that together that way. But at the same time, would it be logistically realistic? I mean, they'd probably do the same thing that ESPN does. We're just going to stream Sky Sports. Here's another wild thought. Sky Sports go to America.
The problem there is the networks that you have that are successful are already here.
Right.
You have FS1. You have basically you have Fox Sports, you have CBS Sports, you have NBC Sports, you have ESPN. You're not going to create a brand new sports network. And
I'm not saying create a new one. I'm saying if they don't have it already, because I don't know all the ins and outs of Sky Sports. I mean, it's European based, but I assume they have a streaming service.
They do, but the problem is everything that they stream already has a home here. The Premier League is already on NBC. So Peacock has all those games and all that. The Champions League, if they cover the Champions League, CBS has the rights to that. So what you would end up having to do is taking all of these entities and be like, hey, Major League Baseball, we want you to join the Sky Sports family. This is what we can do for you in the States, because that's where your biggest fan base is. You're not going to sit there as Major League Baseball and go, you know what? I want to alienate the everyday fan here, and I want to put games solely on Sky so that Europeans can watch it. It's why I think the NFL is not as big in Europe as it is here, because you look at the TV markets and you look at the TV deals that this league and these networks have. It's almost like it's permanent. They're always going to be on local television. They're always going to be on Fox. They're always going to be on CBS, NBC. They just got back to ABC. So with if you try to get Sky to come here, that'd be like taking NBC Sports and going, "Hey, go make Premier League successful in London."
I see what you're saying, but that I'm also not saying alienate anything. I'm just saying they kind of have their app come be available in the United States, because you cannot. If I wanted Sky Sports in my apartment right now, I would have to use a VPN that links up in Europe and sign up that way.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only way that I would be able to watch anything Sky Sports here. Shouldn't have to be that difficult. Just unlock it globally.
The problem there is, if you unlock it globally, then what's the point of having exclusive rights deals? If I can watch it wherever, then it's,
why would I give a shit about exclusive right deals?
If I'm the
Premier,
if I'm the Premier League, I care about exclusive rights. I don't want anybody anybody having my rights to, like, my broadcast rights. It's got to be the right partner. It's got to be for the right price. It's got to be, everything has to fit within a mold that, what can we get how can we get the most eyes on this product? Well, I could tell you right now, Formula One going to a streaming service full time is not how you get more eyes on the product.
I don't disagree with you.
The way you get more eyes on this product is you say, okay, we need a local network. We need a big network that will sit there and say, I'm willing to take a bet on this.
Well, then you need a organization that's not money hungry for more money, when the broadcast network is not really making a profit off of it as it is.
But that's where Formula One needs to bring their price down, because they think anybody's willing to pay the price that they will set.
That's my exact point.
They announced that they wanted double what ESPN was paying, and so they want $180 million a year to broadcast 24 races.
Yeah, has there been any bites?
No, there's been none. Nobody has budged, not even the streaming services, because they don't feel like that they're going to get a return on their investment.
Because they're not going to, for one organizational group.
What was the number I said? 1.1 million people on average watched races in 2024.
I think you said 3.1.
I'd be interested. I have it right here. 1.1 million
on average. Of all 24 or 23 races last year.
So let's look this up. Let's look up average viewership.
But that's just in America.
Of motorsport, yes, of motorsports.
I'm curious what NASCAR has daily or has on average. So I'm sure it's more.
Okay.
But we got to move off this topic soon. We're going on a tangent at this point.
But the problem is, it's a really important tangent, because how are we going to consume motorsport?
I mean, you're not wrong. It's not like we're going to talk about Suzuka, because it'll just make me sleepy again.
I'll do this, okay? I'm going to tell you, somebody did auto racing average television viewers of 2024 by event. Okay. The top 15, I take that back. 14 of the top 15 events are NASCAR Cup Series races.
Yeah, I believe it.
The Daytona 500 was number one. The only thing that broke the top 15 Cup Series thing was the Indy 500 is number two.
Yep. That was going to be my guess.
The Daytona 500 had 5.9 million people watching. Just over 5.9 million, almost 6. The Indy 500 had 5,024,000. Would you like to know what the top ranked Formula One race had on ABC?
On ABC?
Yes.
ABC. This was last year?
It was Miami.
That was going to be my thought, only because of all the popularity of people pushing it.
2.899 million people watched that race.
I was going to think.
Now,
I would have said like 1.6.
If I go This is data sourced from Sports Media Watch.
Now, is this also including bars that are broadcasting it or with their little?
I don't think that this takes that into account. No.
Okay.
In fact, when I tell you the top 15, only one race wasn't NASCAR. In the top 40, there were only 2 non-NASCAR sanctioned events.
Mm-hmm.
The Indy 500 and the Miami GP. After that, 41st, Monaco on ABC.
And that's only because of the fact that it's Monaco. It's got years of experience and it's been broadcast in America all the time.
The top 5, well, a motorsports fan like me looks at it like this. I'm waking up and I'm having breakfast in Monaco. I'm having lunch in Indianapolis, and I'm having dinner in Charlotte. I'm a full-blown motorsports fan. I'll watch any kind of car racing there is.
I'm pretty sure that was your post this past year on Facebook.
It's my post literally every year since I paid attention that Monaco was on Memorial Day weekend. Mind you, I've watched Formula One since 2000. Pretty soon, it's going to not be the thing again because they're moving it, I think, a weekend later. So you're not going to have breakfast in Monaco, then lunch in Indy. It's just going to be, I'm going to wake up. There's going to be no race on until the Indy 500.
Yep.
Which I think is criminal.
I think it'll be okay.
I will say the top 5 races for Formula One were all on ABC, proving my point that if you want more eyes on the sport, put it on a big network.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm all for doing that, but it's Formula One needs to stop being so money hungry. I get it. They're asking for it because of the success of Drive to Survive. Tough tits. Yeah, there's more viewers watching Formula One in the United States now, but there's not enough to justify that cost, especially when it's a rebroadcast of another, or a bounce on another broadcast that's already going on. Like, it's not like you're bringing your people in to film and do all the work. Like, you would have to actually really invest in more. You're just bouncing the Sky Sports stream onto your satellites too.
Well, and the sad thing is, it's not even that Sky Sports is stream; it's the international stream. Because if you watch Formula One on F1 TV and you put ESPN's broadcast next to it, you're getting the same camera angles that the world feed gets. They're just feeding in and they're commentating over that.
Different audio.
That's how.
I'm not really looking to hear Will Bruxton anymore. So.
Well, he's on IndyCar's coverage, and he's actually not doing a bad job. He's doing a really good job with IndyCar, having only, I think they've done 2 races. The third race, I think, is Long Beach this weekend. I will be keeping an eye on that because that is always a fun race. But they also have a good booth. That's the other thing that kind of helps bring eyes to see an event, especially in motorsports. You have to have a good booth.
Yeah.
Nothing, being a NASCAR fan, I had Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, and Darrell Waltrip. The early days of them was like gold. You had the excitement of Darrell Waltrip. You had the even keel, very educated about the sport, Mike Joy. And then you had former crew chief Larry McReynolds, who would sit there and say, this is what you're looking for. This is what they should do. And he even put excitement into the broadcast. When you have a boring booth, then it just kind of puts a damper on it. So keep Crofty if you can. Keep Martin Brundle if you can. Because when the moments get exciting, then it elevates the product. You need a good storyteller.
Put Jacques with Martin. Like, let him learn from Martin. Like, don't change his candidness. I did appreciate that. And him just shooting from the hip. But at the same time, he needs to be able to, like, if you just compare and contrast when Crofty passes off, hey, explain this lap.
He probably wasn't.
Jacques hesitated immediately. He didn't even know how to say it.
He probably looked at it and was like, okay, I'm going to watch this lap. But it's, you know, he's got to have a few races. Like, you can't just go based off of one race.
But he knows Suzuka. He should have known exactly what you need to do on the turns.
You can know how to do something. That doesn't mean you know how to explain it on the fly that fast. Plus, when you think about it, when you listen to a Martin Brundle explain the lap, he is telling you what the driver is doing or what the driver has already done, and then saying he needs to be ready for, you know, this undulation into the corner, or you know, hitting the breaking point at the last possible second. He knows to kind of fudge it a little bit. Jacques doesn't yet, and he'll get there. It'll take time.
But it's not like Jacques doesn't watch the races from home too and hears Martin's commentary. I'm not saying be Martin Brundle. I'm not saying that at all. But if you're going to explain the lap, if Crofty's going to put that in you as the color commentator, because that's what they are, you need to put some color into the conversation.
But it's where I said he's a but. He's not an and therefore.
He's got a lot of work to do if he's going to replace Martin down the road.
But there are people other than Martin Brundle that could, I mean, other than Jacques, that could take that mantle and run with it. I think Jenson Button does a fantastic job. I think that
I think Jenson would be good, actually.
I think Karun does a fantastic job in the booth as the second, or as a color commentator. But one thing, like you were talking about them interrupting each other, that was one thing that happened with, I don't know if you've seen like or heard old footage of Murray Walker and James Hunt back when they commentated. If you watch the Senna documentary, and it's the two British broadcasters talking about what's going on in Monaco at the beginning of the episode, of the beginning of the documentary, that's James Hunt and that's that's Murray Walker. I don't know why I said Martin Brundle. But they would step on each other's toes so much that it got to a point where they only had one microphone. And so Murray would sit there and he would say his piece and he'd be holding his microphone and he'd give it to James Hunt, who would take it and then say his piece, and he'd go on. And when he was done, he'd give it back to Murray and they'd go back and forth. And until they figured out their pattern, their rhythm, then it flourished. Unfortunately, James Hunt passed away, so they had to get a new guy. They got Martin Brundle, who's been doing it since. At one point, I think Martin Brundle was the lead commentator for F1 when they were in the midst of it. Because I want to say it's not Spa 98. There's a race where Martin Brundle's doing the lead commentary, and it's like, it doesn't feel natural, but it's what it is.
Right. And I mean, anyone who's going to come in and not only take his spot temporarily or even permanently down the road needs to be able to adapt it for themselves. Like, I know there will be never be another Martin Brundle, and that's fine. What I'm saying though is that it needs to flow better. And Jacques would just kind of, instead of taking the cues from the other commentators when they were just kind of standing in pit lane talking, like they intentionally be like, okay, Jensen, what do you think? Okay, Natalie, what do you think? He just kind of wants to chime in. I get it, he's excited. He wants to talk racing, but bro, you gotta take a broadcast course or something. Like, they should have maybe they didn't give him anything. Maybe they just threw a microphone at him too. Like, so it could be Sky Sports' issue as well. But
I mean, they have him signed on for the season to do whatever he's going to do. He's got a lot of insight in current Formula One.
Oh yeah, he's very knowledgeable.
If I want to say Martin typically misses a couple races, it'll be interesting to see what other races, the normal races he misses. I think he misses I want to say he misses Baku every year, and then there's another one that I know he misses every year.
They mentioned at the end which one they would see Jacques at the next one. I forgot what it was, and I can't think of it right now. But I think it's a couple of months away. But anyway, it's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and he'll get better for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Back to on the on the track topics. Sergio Perez, it's reported that many teams have been asking for his services coming up, one of which, according to some sources, say it is the newcomer Cadillac. I think that would be a smart thing for Cadillac to do.
As a consultant or as a racer?
As a driver.
Okay.
I think that would be smart for Cadillac to do.
Yeah. Especially if you're going with an American who's never been in Formula One too.
That's reported. You know, they don't know who they're getting yet. They haven't come out. They don't have a car designed. They don't have
who is the closest to even having a super license?
Because
they're not going to go with.
I've seen Alex Palou from IndyCar.
Okay.
But he's from Spain. They've said what's his name? Colton Herta. I don't know why I blanked on his name just now. Colton Herta could be one that will take a drive in the Cadillac F1 car.
Will he have the points for the super license?
That I don't know. I know that there's some things that could help him get that in the future. I've seen Valtteri Bottas's name thrown out there, which would be a good get also.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think if they want to go the American route, you might not be able to go the American route, but you could possibly go the North American route and get a Pato Award from IndyCar if he can win the championship. Because that's the thing. You need to win the championship in IndyCar to get the super license.
Right. But you also, I'm looking at it now, over the previous 3 seasons to get 40 points. So even if you get second, you get 30 in IndyCar, and then you just got to find another 10. So there's that as well. So there's ways to do it. It's just you got to be in those higher ranked.
I mean, weights. in all honesty, to me, Colton Herta is the favorite to get it solely because that Cadillac entry is basically the ghost of Andretti Global without Michael Andretti in charge. They've talked about we'll get Joseph Newgarden. I think Joseph Newgarden likes being in IndyCar and being successful with Team Penske. If they keep it almost seems like Colton Herta or bust for that seat as an American driver. If you definitely can't get Joseph Newgarden, you have to get a veteran. Perez fits that description. He's been on successful teams. He can point you in the right direction. Same with Valtteri. Those are the two that you need. If anything, you put those two together.
It's interesting you don't worry about Valtteri because remember, I don't know if you saw the pre-show interview. They interviewed him, and he said he was already in talks with other teams because the goal is always to get into another seat.
Well, that's going to be he's going to say that because no one likes to be the reserve.
Of course not. But it's interesting because he was also kind of like, I don't know if I want to race after 24. So it's hard to not want to race. I think him going back to Merck even as a reserve kind of reignited that fire because I know he wasn't happy, but it's interesting to see where he'll be because Kimi's definitely not losing his spot. Russell's not losing his spot. So there is nothing but reserve at Mercedes now. So it's Cadillac or another, high mid-tier team.
So here's the thing with Colton Herta. What he needs to do this year is he needs a top 4 finish in the driver standings.
Okay. To get enough for points.
To have enough points for the super license.
That's doable.
As of right now, he is 8th, 55 points behind Alex Palou, who's in the lead. He is currently, trying to do quick maths here, 7 points behind 4th place Christian Lundgaard for Arrow McLaren. It's possible.
Yeah, he could do it.
This should be a reason why you watch IndyCar this year.
I do like IndyCar. I just never remember the races because I don't.
It's on Fox. It's on Big Fox.
I don't have a calendar.
But I mean, there's no reason he can't, grab a bull by the horns and just take over. The other problem he's going to run into is he doesn't have a seat to. Now, let's say he finishes 4th. I'm sure Cadillac could work a deal with a team. I want to say they're going to utilize. I want to say they're going to utilize Ferrari engines to start because I don't think they've developed their own engine yet.
You talking about Cadillac?
Yes.
I thought they were forward powered.
No, that's Red Bull.
Oh. No, I could have sworn Cadillac was going to come in as a manufacturer. That was the whole point of them coming in.
They're going to become a power unit manufacturer by the end of the 2020s, but not straight out the gate. I'm looking to see right now, power unit program. Here you go. Cadillac anticipates that GM performance power units will have engine ready for the 2028 season. In December 2024, Ferrari announced that Cadillac had signed a multi-year deal to use their engines and gearboxes from 2026 onward until GM PPU develops an F1-ready power unit. Gotcha. So they are going to – so if they haven't utilized all the young driver practices by the end of the year, I can foresee that if Colton Herta gets enough points for his super license, that Cadillac's going to sign him and say, hey, Ferrari, can you give us a seat for FP1 so we could get this kid in a car? Yeah. And they'll utilize Sauber or Haas or Ferrari, whatever they want to use to put him in a seat and say, go see what a practice session's like.
Right.
I know that they can kind of play with some kind of practice in an older car to get him seat time in an F1 car. I don't know how the rules fall with what's going to happen with that with Cadillac because they don't have an old F1 car. So it remains to be seen how that's going to work. But I'll be honest, Cadillac getting into Formula One can't get here fast enough. I want to see 22 drivers out on the grid, and I hope that Cadillac's competitive. The way you become competitive is you sit there, you look at a Valtteri Bottas, you look at a Sergio Perez, and you say, get in our car, tell us what we need to do. But they have to understand that, yes, they'll compete for whatever position they'll compete for, but at the end of the day, they are essentially a litmus test on where their car is right now and what do they need to improve on. That's all I have to say about Sergio Perez. And, he deserves a seat in Formula One. I think he's a good driver. He's a very talented driver. He just had second Red Bull seatitis to end his career.
And, I mean, let's be honest. His driving style is completely different than Max's. So it was never going to work.
A lot of people's driving styles are different than Max's.
100%.
Max is in a world of his own, for sure. One more thing before we call it for this episode, because we're kind of getting low on time to the end. Yep. We talk about engine suppliers. There has been rumor around the garage and the paddock that the FIA wants to see if teams want to go back to V10s and kind of get rid of the hybrids. As of right now, it is said that Ferrari and Red Bull are good to do V10s starting in 2028 or 2029.
Mm-hmm.
Mercedes is open to discussion to see what would become of that and how that would go. However, Audi and Honda, who are the other two engine manufacturers, have blatantly said no, they are not they're not willing to go the V10 route. They want to continue with the next gen hybrid system.
Well, Honda also doesn't want to because they don't make a V10. They've never made a V10, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that one. But all their engines in all their cars are the same engine, essentially. So they're just making these turbos.
So they develop hybrids for the road because that's what these car manufacturers do. They develop for the road using the racetrack.
Yeah.
Audi has a pretty successful hybrid system. Their e-tron system is really good. They're all electric. So I can see why they won't go the V10 route. I'm excited that Mercedes is willing to have the conversation so that it's not totally shut down. But I will say 2 out of 5 engine suppliers can easily shut down a discussion. The problem that they have is
when one of them finances 4 different teams, including their own, or power supplies 4 teams.
You talk about Honda,
Ferrari.
Oh, Ferrari. No, Ferrari's open. They want to do it.
No, but what I'm saying is
Ferrari and Red Bull want to do it.
4 votes on that one,
right?
Technically,
but it's not 4 teams that get to vote. It's the engine supplier themselves, so they get
right.
1
I
vote.
get that.
Audi gets 1 vote. Merc gets 1 vote, and so on and so forth.
Who's Audi powering?
They're gonna be Kick Sauber is going to become Audi next year. They're going to be the Audi factory team next year.
I mean, that day-late dollar short.
That's been in the works. That's been announced since I think this generation, like this current gen F1 car, has been announced.
Right.
I think they actually did the announcement hand in hand together. So
they probably don't want to do it because then now they're gonna have to start designing and
they joined Formula One for the sole reason that they have this hybrid powered I think it's 1.6 liter V6. And they want to develop off of that. And I don't blame them.
No, I get it.
That's why if you look at, I know I keep bringing them up, but it's the easiest thing for me to try to describe to our American viewers. NASCAR only has 3 manufacturers, Toyota, Ford, and Chevy. Why don't other OEMs want to join? Because they don't have a V8. Dodge had a V8, and then they took it out of all their cars. And so now they only do V6s unless you're in a truck. Dodge wanted to go back to NASCAR, but they realized, oh, shit, we need a V8. So then they put a V8 back in the Charger. They got bullied into that, I might add, by the general public.
Do you think, though, if Merc says yes to V10s, will Audi pull out?
I don't think Audi is going to care what Mercedes says. I think what would need to happen is the only way I can see this becoming a success is if you have, hey, let's not do V6s, let's do V8 hybrids and make them scream the way that the V8s used to. I think that's the biggest reason why V10 conversation has come back, is because people miss that V10 scream down the straightaway, coming out of the corners. That gurgle that they had downshifting. You don't get that anymore. You get this trumpet sounding, as some people say, fart can going down the straightaway.
I mean, we'll hear it in 26. The full electric.
It's going to be the same. It's not full electric at 26.
I thought the power unit was not the power unit.
No, they're getting bigger batteries.
Yeah.
So it's more of a hybrid system, but you get more energy recovery out of it.
Which you need because you're getting rid of DRS, which I think
But you're going to active aero.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It's like you got active aero, but it's like, I don't know. People are just starting to get used to and understanding the DRS, and active aero is not super difficult to follow, but then it's just something new people are gonna have to figure out.
It's all going to be new, and it's, the next couple years it's going to be interesting. You're going to be hearing lame duck season with development, and what is Team A going to do with the with next year's power unit? How many are they going to be able to use throughout the year? It's all hearsay at this point until we get pen to paper and we know the only thing I know next year is that the car is going to be different, and that's it. And I know that by 2030, Formula One wants to be net zero carbon emissions across the board. And some teams want to do the hybrid system, some teams want to utilize this renewable fuels that they have with the V10, because that's the whole reason they went hybrid, was because they wanted to do the net carbon zero,
right?
The net zero carbon emission. So they went hybrid, but now that they have renewable fuels, it's, that lowers our carbon footprint a little bit. Why don't we try to revisit that? So it remains to be seen. The FIA president's going to fight, because that's what he does. If he likes something, he's going to fight till he sees it through.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about this guy as the FIA president, but he is the FIA president, and I can't do anything about it because I don't work for the FIA. I'm just a fan. So
we can have our opinions, but
yeah,
in the end, they're going to do what they're going to do either way.
So I think that'll about wrap it up for this episode, unless you have something else you want to.
No, I'm just ready for a real race in Bahrain this weekend. I know it's Thursday night. We should have done this a couple of days ago, but life gets ahead of us, and I was still sleeping post race.
Life's been kind of busy. Working on some new things personally and professionally, so should be fun. But I think that's time for us to hit the road and be ready for Bahrain this weekend to
sweat it out.
Let's see how these teams have done post-testing.
Oh, yeah.
Going into this race, if the numbers will be the same. But for now, I am Joey. That is Rob. This has been the Ready Steady Geaux F1 podcast. We'll see you next week with an all-new episode recapping Bahrain and previewing Saudi Arabia. So until then, deuces.
See ya.